Tonight we told you about how the FAA has changed and dramatically lowered its standards for air traffic controllers. That is an ongoing story that's a threat to this country, and we're going to stay on top of it until it changes. That's it for us tonight. Sean Hannity in a brand new studio, I think, in New York.
New digs,
looking
Tucker.
good, Sean.
Can you believe it? Maybe they're going to keep me another week. It's amazing. Good to see you, my friend.
So.
Great show.
See you, man.
Welcome to Hannity. All right, we have a ton of breaking news in this edition of Hannity. It's amazing, actually. Kind of like Shep's, spaceship newsroom. Anyway, new digs tonight. But welcome to Hannity. We have a major disgraceful leak, apparently out of Robert Mueller's anti-Trump witch hunt. It's sending your mainstream corrupt anti-Trump media into a frenzy, which is such a predictable state for them to be in. Now, the leak consisted of a confidential, months-old letter from President Trump's attorneys detailing their long-standing belief that the President of the United States cannot obstruct justice and can rightfully pardon himself. Now, in moments, we will explain in detail why Trump's legal team is 1,000% correct, which we've been doing now for some months. We'll also call out the media for yet another pathetic display of their misplaced anti-Trump outrage and hysteria over a non-story. The White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders will join us and respond in a minute. Also, the great one, Mark Levin, will weigh in. And we have more updates about the deep state. And then former President Bill Clinton, oh boy, major meltdown. We've got it all on tape. We'll play it for you and show you the tape. Now, many, by the way, on the left in this country, if you look at them, they are hoping, wishing, begging, pleading that the Clintons would finally go away. But they actually stuck with the Clintons through, well, November 8th of 2016. We'll explain that as well. We'll also end on a very incredibly positive note. We have a lot of good news. Today is day 500 of the Trump administration. Now, for months, the left has been telling you, the American people, that Donald Trump is going to ruin this country. He's going to start a nuclear war. It's going to be a disaster. Well, numbers are numbers, facts are facts, and the exact opposite is true. From North Korea to Iran to Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, to the economy here, record-breaking numbers all over the place. We'll highlight a lot of the president's greatest accomplishments in 500 days and explain why optimism in America is now at an all-time high. People are not listening to fake news. So that's all coming up in tonight's very important breaking news opening monologue. All right, this weekend, the fake and, well, slowly deteriorating New York Times published a confidential memo from President Trump's attorneys to the Office of the Special Counsel. Now, if leaked by someone on Mueller's team, this is a huge criminal breach of trust. Mayor Giuliani thinks that's a fact. Now, but while neither the left nor the mainstream media seem to care about why a confidential letter was leaked from Robert Mueller's office to the press, many liberals are now feigning their predictable moral outrage over the memo's contents, especially this paragraph that details the legal team's view of obstruction and the president's power to pardon. Quote, the president's actions here, by virtue of his position as the chief law enforcement officer, could neither constitutionally nor legally constitute obstruction, because that would amount to him obstructing himself, and that he could, if he wished, terminate the inquiry or even exercise the power to pardon if he so desired. Now, this echoes exactly what attorney after attorney after attorney have been telling you right here on this program now for months. And as President Donald Trump and his legal team, they do have the power to literally order the Department of Justice to actually initiate an investigation, end an investigation, and by the way, for any reason. That is within the president's constitutional authority. Even the DOJ admits they can't charge a sitting president with obstruction. So why are we talking about it? Now, also, the president's power to pardon, even himself, it is an absolute power. And over the weekend, look at that guy there. You see him? Well, his hair's a little grayer now, but that's Clinton sycophant turned so-called journalist for ABC News, Georgie Stephanopoulos. Now you can see him there whispering in Bill Clinton's ears. Well, yesterday, Stephanopoulos, he asked Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump's attorney, former New York City mayor, what is a completely nonsensical, totally hypothetical, and frankly ridiculous question about this very concept. It is irrelevant to everything in the reality that is happening. Take a look.
Do you and the president's attorneys believe the president has the power to pardon himself?
He's not, but he probably does. I mean, he has no intention of pardoning himself, but he probably does. It doesn't say he can't. I mean, that's another really interesting constitutional argument. Can the president pardon himself? I
think it's an open
used
question?
to run the pardon attorney. It would be an open question. I think it would probably get answered by, gosh, that's what the Constitution says, and if you want to change it. But, yeah.
A lot of focus on the president.
I think the political ramifications of that would be tough. Pardoning other people is one thing. Pardoning yourself is another.
Rudy Giuliani was kind of laughing about it. Well, he does have the power, but that's not going to happen. And look at how the media's reacted. And little Georgie Stephanopoulos acts all bewildered. This is not a new concept. We'll take you back. Let's go down memory lane. 2016. Then candidate Hillary Clinton, remember, hot water over a gross, blatant misuse of classified information on the mom and pop bathroom closet server. Well, many were actually arguing, thinking that she was going to be elected president, that she, if she was, could rightfully pardon herself. Let's look at this headline from Dan Abrams' Law and Crime website. If Hillary Clinton is indicted, well, President Clinton could pardon herself and Congress might be helpless. And this article from the Wall Street Journal, quote, the short answer to whether the Constitution permits self-pardoning is yes, it probably does. That seems to be the prevailing, but by no means unanimous opinion among legal experts. Now, of course, that ridiculous question to Giuliani came from the same guy who made a name for himself as being Bill Clinton's political hitman during his run for the president. This is now the spokesman and news person for ABC News. He's no Peter Jennings. Take a look.
What is names, addresses? I can send you a fax with names, addresses, phone numbers of who you had an affair with. It wouldn't make it true. It is completely. If you went on the radio and said that Bill Clinton is the father of an illegitimate black child, you would be laughed at. People would think you're crazy. I guarantee you that if you do this, you'll never work in Democratic politics again. Maybe you don't want to. I'm not saying it matters. You will be embarrassed before the National Press Corps. People will think, nobody will believe you, and people will think you're scummy.
Oh, George looks so fair and unbiased. He seems like a real journalist in that video. Now, meanwhile, Rudy Giuliani's comments were clearly based on legal precedent. And earlier today, the president himself backed up his legal counsel. He tweeted out, quote, as has been stated by numerous legal scholars, I have the absolute right to pardon myself, but why would I do that when I've done nothing wrong? Which brings us to a very important point. This phony, feigned, so-called outrage from the left and the media and other anti-Trump groupies is over something that has not happened and something that will not happen because President Trump has done nothing wrong, and it was a hypothetical that Rudy Giuliani was actually laughing at. Still, the media's echo chamber blowing up over something rooted in legal precedent, backed up by real constitutional scholars, and yet something that has not ever happened and probably won't. Take a look at the media once again making much ado about absolutely nothing, and watch this, knowing this is the same media as you watch this, totally missing in action on the biggest story in their lifetimes, which is the largest, biggest abuse of power corruption scandal in U.S. history. They don't talk about that. This is what they focus on.
A stunning statement here, Poppy, from the president openly declaring that he believes he is above the law.
Try to picture an ordinary criminal who committed a crime saying that. I can do whatever I want, and by the way, I'll pardon myself. You sound like you're guilty when you say that.
Think about what we're talking about. The president all morning is basically again saying the president of the United States is above the law and is not required to comply with the Constitution or the laws of the United States. I mean, that is staggering.
They are kidding themselves and will be let down horribly if they ever decide to try this on, to take this and put wheels on this and take it out for a spin to the United States Supreme Court. If you don't believe me, go to the Supreme Court. You may get one, you may get two votes. That's it. You will be run over.
The President of the United States is talking about pardoning himself, about not being indicted. You have to look at what the political environment would be, what political environment would be created by that. We're really talking about the end of his presidency. If you're talking about the President of the United States saying, I'm going to pardon myself, even if Republicans try to protect him, you're talking about the collapse in many ways of the institutions of this republic.
Another week, more hysteria, more feigned moral outrage, another fake scandal pushed from the same people that have been wrong for a year and a half, and they yet want you to trust them. No wonder their approval ratings are in the gutter, almost at single digits. And journalism in this country is dead and buried. Also tonight, we have more evidence your deep state is crumbling right before our eyes. Look at this CBS News poll. Americans, they've lost confidence in Robert Mueller's probe, or so-called probe. They agree with President Trump. The witch hunt needs to end. Michael Barone now writing, quote, Obama's spying scandal is starting to look a lot like Watergate. I keep telling you it's Watergate on steroids. Former Attorney General Michael Mukasey, smart man, dressing down one former deep state operative at the center of all of this. Look at what he says about Brennan. Take a look.
John Brennan's going to have a lot to answer for when this is over, because his participation in, or the participation of the CIA in providing an informant to be used in connection with the Mueller investigation, I think is a story that hasn't yet been told. The guy who was the informant, was a CIA asset, not an FBI asset. And I would like to know how a CIA asset suddenly becomes an FBI informant. Who organized that? Who paid him? And was John Brennan running some kind of multi-agency operation relating to the Trump campaign? I don't know that he has any credentials as a mind reader or as a psychoanalyst to be analyzing the president's motives. But his own performance is certainly nothing to write home about.
And new developments tonight surrounding the ongoing obstruction from the Department of Justice. This is a sad moment in American history. Now, the House Intel Committee Chairman Devin Nunes gave an update on the DOJ stonewalling. He had some really strong words for his colleague, especially House Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy, who was so dead wrong last week, unfortunately, and he didn't even have all the information that he needed before he made these comments. Now, take a look at what he said to our friend Maria Bartiromo.
We should have been provided all of this information that we've been asking for over and over and over again. We issued a new subpoena, and so now we've been waiting. We've attended 2 briefings. They were very small briefings, not a lot of information, but we were happy it was progress. We believe that there are some documents, information that we will review this week. What I would say is if you don't have anything to hide, the Deputy Attorney General knows that Mr. Gowdy would love to exonerate the Department of Justice and the FBI. And we got to be very careful because the media has tried to make a bigger deal about this than what it is. What Trey Gowdy is specifically talking about is this small slice of the investigation that we're looking at as it relates to whether or not an informant or informants were used. That's what he's referring to when he talks about that the president's not a target of this investigation. I believe that Mr. Gowdy knows very well, and he's been instrumental in helping us get to the bottom of the FISA abuse that did occur.
We have more updates on the swamp each night as we peel back the layers of that onion of the deep state and dismantle it, and we're doing it night by night, brick by brick. All right, we have to turn our attention, believe it or not, to former President Bill Clinton. Back in the news, like an unwanted house guest that overstayed his welcome by, let's say, a few decades. Bill Clinton is back in the public spotlight, obviously making money, pushing a brand new book, and it's off to a horrible start. So what the grandfather, we can call him the grandfather of today's Me Too movement, Clinton failed to realize is that it's no longer 1996. And all his buddies in the mainstream media can no longer afford to give him the free pass on his history of rampant, horrific sexual misconduct. During an interview with NBC News, the former president was finally pressed. Now, they could have done this before the election, but of course they wanted Hillary to win. But he was pressed on how he mishandled the Monica Lewinsky scandal. And almost unbelievably, Clinton, who was impeached for lying under oath, said he did the right thing. Remember, Paula Jones said he dropped his pants and got naked in front of her. We know what Juanita Broderick charged him with rape. Kathleen Willey groping, grabbing, fondling, touching against her will in the Oval Office. And then, of course, Monica. Watch this.
Clinton says critics are now pouncing in light of the Me Too movement, but he stands by his decision to fight impeachment rather than resign.
So a lot of the facts have been conveniently omitted to make the story work. But I think partly because they're frustrated that they got all these serious allegations against the current occupant of the Oval Office, and his voters don't seem to care. I think I did the right thing. I defended the Constitution.
Yeah? What fact was omitted? Please tell us, because let's see, you lost your law license, you lost a judgment in the case of Paula Jones and paid money, and yeah, you were impeached. Finally, you got to give some credit to the mainstream media. They obviously lost sight of what their usual bias is. In this case, it was NBC. Craig Melvin continued to press Clinton, and the former president just could not take it, handle it, or even believe it. He's living back in 1996. Take a look.
Do you think differently or feel more responsibility?
No, I felt terrible then, and I came to grips with it.
Did you ever apologize to him?
No, yes, and nobody believes that I got out of that for free. I left the White House $16 million in debt. But you typically have ignored gaping facts in describing this, and I bet you don't even know them.
Do you feel like you owe her an apology?
No, I do. I do not. I've never talked to her. But I did say publicly on more than one occasion that I was sorry. I dealt with it 20 years ago plus, and the American people, 2/3 of them stayed with me, and I've tried to do a good job since then with my life and with my work. That's all I have to say to you.
Remember he once said, "We were alone, but I never really thought we were alone." Me and Monica, you know, I looked out the window, it was a girl on a bicycle, so as long as there's somebody else out there in the world, you're never really alone, are you? Did not have sex with that woman, not a single time. For years, both Bill and Hillary Clinton, they've acted above the law. The complicit media gave them a pass. They ignored all of this in the 2016 election. And Bill Clinton's sick, perverted history of sexual misconduct, including all of these allegations. We've interviewed these women, even rape, have gone unpunished. And the media didn't bring it up in 2016 because they wanted her elected. And by the way, we all know Hillary was gifted leniency by James Comey after she committed felonies, violated the Espionage Act, deleted 33,000 subpoenaed emails, acid washed her hard drive, and broke up her devices with a hammer, or had an aide do it. Do you think you or any other ordinary, everyday American would be given a pass by law enforcement if you did what Hillary Clinton did or did what Bill Clinton did? I doubt it. And what about the Clinton campaign paying a foreign spy to cook up unverified, untrue, proven false in most cases, Russian intelligence to use as an research against President Trump? Anyone in the Clinton campaign under investigation for that Russian collusion? No, the Mueller witch hunt is only investigating Trump associates. We have a two-tiered justice system. This is the danger in this country today. If we're going to remain a constitutional republic, one that benefits the Clinton at every turn, and they have laughed all the way to the bank. And by the way, you should all be outraged. Now, despite all of this, we do have amazing news to share with you tonight. It is now the 500th day since Donald Trump was inaugurated, and after months of predictions that a Trump presidency would leave this country in ruins, well, it is now undeniable that the entire world is seeing massive, serious progress under the president's leadership. We have pending talks with the North Korean dictator. That's just days away. We're going to talk about the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. That now weighs in the balance in the interim. Let's see. Kim Jong-un has halted all of his missile tests. No more missiles being fired over Japan in the interim. He literally is destroying one of his nuclear test sites. It's been disabled. Don't forget, 3 American hostages were also returned, and he walked over to the DMZ into the arms of the South Korean president. All good news. Not a dime paid, like in the case of Obama or Clinton, in showing peace through strength works. And also breaking today, 3 longtime North Korean generals have been fired by Kim Jong-un, another good potential sign of North Korea's commitment towards serious reform. And meanwhile, on day 500, the Trump presidency, let's see, we've seen so many great developments right here at home. We don't even have the time to list them. Look at the side of your screen. Nearly 3 million plus jobs have been created, 300,000 in manufacturing alone. The unemployment rate, an almost unprecedented 3.8%, the lowest in 50 years. We have for African Americans all-time low unemployment rate. Same with Hispanic Americans. Same for women in the workplace. 14 state record lows as it relates to unemployment. Consumer confidence, 17-year high. Now, this after passing a historic $3.7 trillion tax cut and cutting 22 regulations for every new one enacted. And even the New York Times, of all places, writing, we ran out of words to describe how good these job numbers are. And fake news CNN even had to report that the unemployment rate matches its lowest point in half a century. Other accomplishments include the president keeping his promise. The U.S. Embassy has moved to Jerusalem and Israel, getting America out of that horrific Iranian nuclear deal. And you can't forget about Trump's actions against Assad, ISIS, and Vladimir Putin. And you likely won't hear about this in the press, but the construction of that wall on the southern border of this country, yeah, it started in San Diego. And remember, the successful appointment of Neil Gorsuch, an originalist, to the Supreme Court as promised. I could go on and on. It'll take up the whole show. Look at Zogby. More Americans now believe they're much better off than when Donald Trump took office. But yet the elites in this country, the Democrats, the media, Hollywood, and others all warning you that President Trump would be bad for America. You knew better. Bad for the world. You knew better. In fact, these people were actively and are actively rooting for the president and the country to fail so they can get power back. What they don't understand is that Americans are fed up with both parties. They're disgusted. So they purposefully elected an iconoclast, a disruptor, and someone that they knew would get results and make decisions and move at the speed of Trump. And in his first 500 days, the president, he has proved his naysayers wrong. So tonight, an important question to ask: who do you trust? The anti-Trump sycophants who have been wrong over and over and over again, actively now in the position of having to root for failure of the president? That means failure for the country. And by the way, a guy that has gotten results. Tonight, the answer to this question is clear. Everyone in America is reaping the rewards. You, the American people, made the right decision. Here now, Fox News investigative reporter Sarah Carter, former Deputy Attorney General to the President, Fox News national security strategist Dr. Gorka, the author of the new book. It is out in July. Get your copy now. The Russia Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton and frame Donald Trump. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, and he is the House Majority Whip, Congressman Steve Scalise. For the first time I'm seeing you since you were shot, and we were all praying for you, and to see you in person is awesome. It's good to see you.
Great to be with you here in your new studio, Sean, and thanks for the prayers. Really
I know, I can't believe they finally may think I'm actually going to last a day.
They might keep you around. You got to keep this business.
Let me start with Greg Jarrett on the legal side of all this. Is there anything that I'm saying in my opening monologue about the president's powers that the media is wrongly reporting tonight?
No, you're absolutely correct, and so is the president, and legal scholars are correct. The Constitution is silent. It doesn't put a limit on the authority of the president to pardon any person, and that would include himself.
He can initiate a DOJ investigation?
Absolutely.
Stop one?
He can stop one, initiate one. He can do anything he wants.
Can he be charged with obstruction?
Authority. No, he can't be. In the case of Michael Flynn, hoping and wishing that something happens is not obstruction. Firing James Comey can be done for a reason or no reason at all. Comey admitted that himself. So there's no obstruction.
And there was an exculpatory piece in the Comey memo that actually said, Donald Trump said to me, if anyone around me is doing anything wrong, go after them.
Right. He wanted to continue the probe to get to the bottom of it. And that is the greatest exoneration statement in all 7 memos.
Amazing. Sarah Carter, let's go to you. You have been investigating this from day one. Let's talk about where is this IG report? Because now I'm hearing it may be delayed for another 2 weeks. How long does it take for one report to get out? Or I'm hearing they may release it on Friday in the lead up to the Trump summit with North Korea in Singapore.
Well, certainly Inspector General Michael Horowitz's office is very tight-lipped about this. I mean, we're hearing rumors, we're hearing about leaks. I've also heard Friday. I think that's something to watch out for.
Friday is burying the report. Friday is doing the bidding of Democrats.
Friday's doing the bidding of the DOJ, Rod Rosenstein. You know, Rod Rosenstein has still not answered Senator Lindsey Graham's letter asking him if he should be recused from this case. I know that. I spoke to Senator Graham today, and still Rod Rosenstein has not answered his letter. This is also very important. It could be developments in the future. We know that Michael Horowitz, though, is respected by a lot of people, Sean. So he is going to be very thorough.
If he releases this any day, if he releases this Thursday or Friday, he's burying it. If he releases it during the week next week when the president is in Singapore, he is burying the report to protect Rosenstein and the FBI and those that abuse power, and he's doing it to protect the DOJ and the wrongdoers.
Look, but I think also, Sean, this is going to be a very extensive report. I don't think people are going to walk away from this unscathed. I agree with you. I think playing politics here is a really dangerous thing, and burying this report could be very dangerous. Yeah. Absolutely. I would rather him wait 2 weeks as well. The American public can't be distracted. They really need to understand what was going on here. They really need to understand what was happening inside the FBI and across the intelligence apparatus when it came to this investigation.
He should release it, frankly, tomorrow and stop listening to these DOJ people that are begging him, from what I hear, my sources are telling me, to change the report. Let me bring in Congressman Scalise. Look, I think every Republican in this caucus needs to join Devin Nunes and the Freedom Caucus guys and demand that the DOJ release all of this subpoenaed material unredacted. Why are they not doing it? Why aren't Republicans demanding it?
Well, Sean, that's what we've been demanding. I've strongly supported Devin Nunes and his full committee and what they've been trying to do to uncover the facts. And look, I've shown before some of these redacted documents. In many cases, you've got an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper where 90% of it is redacted. And then when you look at what they're talking about, it has nothing to do with national security.
By the way,
what do they have to hide?
One thing they say claimed in national security is the reason it turned out to be, oh, James Comey didn't think that Michael Flynn was lying. That's embarrassing. That's not national security.
Trying to protect people. And look, Sean, our intelligence agencies play an important role in our national security. They ought to want to uncover. If there's a bad apple over there, I surely want to uncover them, but the FBI should want to uncover them as well. I have been given
specific dates, specific memos. Sarah Carter, you know what I'm talking about, that would absolutely blow this wide open. And they are purposely hiding it from the American people. Have you heard the same?
I've heard, what I'm seeing is, number one, on the FISA abuses, we've raised very serious allegations, what Devin Nunes sent over in his letter prompts some follow-up from the FBI.
Why can't they, Paul Ryan, say, we're all going to stand together here? You want to be Speaker. Would you do that?
Well, first of all, I think that we need to back our chairman, Devin Nunes, and his committee in the important work that they're doing.
Only 18 signed a letter.
Well, look, I think that
that's embarrassing to me.
But I also said there needs to be a second special counsel to oversee what's going on over there. Because if this is turning into a witch hunt, we all ought to stop it before.
Is it a witch hunt?
Well, I think it's becoming a witch hunt.
Becoming or is?
If they've got facts about collusion with Russia, and that's what this was supposed to be about, we've never seen any. But if they've got some, they ought to show the American people. If not, it starts to look like a witch hunt.
Dr. Gorka.
It's clearly a witch hunt. How can you obstruct justice or charge somebody with the obstruction of justice without there being a crime? We're almost 2 years into this. What is the crime that the president has committed?
None.
What is the crime? Any of the people Mueller indicted. Oh, she did. She bucket loads of crimes.
They rigged the investigation, didn't they?
But Sean, think of one thing. Every single indictment that Robert Mueller has brought, all of them, have nothing to do with Russia and nothing to do with the election campaign of 2016.
And FISA judges were lied to,
it's a fraud. It's a fraud. Absolutely. The abuse of FISA. And we haven't even started to get to the bottom of the unmasking scandal. When we get all of these documents, the unmasking will be the biggest crime of them all, and it will go back to John Brennan.
Exit question. If, in fact, the IG releases this report Thursday, Friday, or next week, do you agree with me he's purposely burying it?
Well, it shouldn't be buried. We're going to continue to get the facts out there, Sean.
If he does it Thursday, Friday,
it shouldn't be a Friday thing. I mean, look, whatever they do, they want the entire country to see this. They need to restore the integrity of this organization that's so important to national security. A lot of serious questions. They've got to clean their house up.
They have no dirt or a shovel. They can't bury this no matter what because of people like you.
They try. That will be a bigger scandal. I got to run. Thank you all. Good to see you. We're glad you're healthy.
Great being back.
God bless you.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders earlier broke major news about President Trump's summit with the North Korean dictator, Little Rocket Man Kim Jong-un, next week in Singapore. Take a listen.
I can tell you the president has been receiving daily briefings on North Korea from his national security team. And I can also tell you the schedule for tentatively for that first meeting will be on June 12th at 9 a.m. Singapore time and take place June 11th, 9 p.m. East Coast time.
No matter what you call it, he is maximum pressure still the policy of the United States toward North Korea?
Our policy hasn't changed, and as the president stated, we have sanctions on. They're very powerful, and we would not take those sanctions off unless North Korea denuclearized.
All right, here with reaction is White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, who joins us. Sarah, good to see you. Thank you always for being back with us. So, from my perspective, this is really simple about North Korea. So far, we know that one nuclear test site is shut down. We know that he crossed the DMZ. He released 3 American hostages. He's willing to talk about denuclearization. And as far as I know, the United States and the president haven't paid a dime for any of that. True?
True. Look, the president has conceded nothing, and the sanctions that have been on place will continue to be in place. But as the president said on Friday, this is part of the discussion, and he looks forward to this meeting, and he thinks that it's going to be a very good and productive meeting, and it's going to be part of this process. But he certainly thinks that June 12th is going to be a good meeting, and he's certainly looking forward to doing that here in the next week.
You know, I think the president also is very smart in trying to manage expectations. Nothing is going to be signed next week, and this will go as fast or slow as North Korea wants. The sanctions remain in place. If there's another missile fired, we know that the president would then probably send our strike forces right back off the Korean Peninsula if need be. So it seems, especially when the president pulled out for a period, that he means what he says, and he is willing to walk away at any time.
100%. The president is extremely serious about this process, and ultimately he wants to see denuclearization of the peninsula. That's the top goal here, and that's what he's focused on doing. That's what the talks next week will center on. But he also knows that, as he said, this may take time. This may not happen over the course of one meeting, but several meetings. And this is the beginning of that dialogue, and the president is going to be committed and firm to it. And as he has said, we'll see what happens. But he has good feeling about how this first meeting will go.
Okay. An amazing thing is, and I understand how the media is, so the president has kept all of his promises on getting rid of burdensome regulation, largest tax cuts in American history. That promise is fulfilled. Moving the country towards energy independence. You could see the president's fighting on all issues regarding the border and the wall. I know it's 500 days in. Then he kept his word on Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, pulling out of the Iranian deal. Nobody really expected that. It started out as a little rocket man. This would happen. And I watch you every day, and I watch you today, and all the focus was, well, you told us in 2017 that the president had nothing to do with the comments of Don Jr., and I'm thinking, well, every report shows that what the president said, that the Magnitsky Act, or the fact that that meeting was all about, and all the emails prove it to be about, talking about adoption. That the fact is, at the end of that report is, they told the truth. Isn't that the bigger picture that is missed tonight?
Certainly, that's one of the big things missed tonight. But I think the biggest story that's being missed tonight, and I saw it today in that room, they asked me 100 questions on the fake witch hunt that they have been fixated on for these last 500 days, but they forgot to mention the things that Americans actually care about, like the booming economy. We have the best economy since we've had since World War II, and they refuse to talk about that. The stock market is growing. People actually have jobs. People that need jobs and want jobs can get them. I mean, the fact that that wasn't something that was talked about, that wasn't brought up, that was totally ignored. The fact that ISIS is on the run and being defeated day after day, and we're in a much better position than ever before when it comes to that battle. The fact that the president has completely remade the judiciary, the fact that we are becoming an energy independent and an energy dominant country under this president's leadership. They ignore all of the successes of this president, and it's to their detriment. And I think the American people have seen it, and that's why the media's numbers continue to tank and the president's numbers continue to go up.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders, thanks for being with us. All right, when we come back, you do not want to miss the analysis. The great one, Mark Levin, is here, and he is, well, ready to go on a tear. That's next, straight ahead. All right, welcome back to Hannity. So this morning, President Trump went after the Mueller witch hunt, tweeting, quote, "The appointment of the special counsel is totally unconstitutional. Despite that, we'll play the game because I, unlike the Democrats, have done nothing wrong." All right, here with all the legal commentary. I call him the Great One. He's the host of CRTV's Levin TV, the host of Life, Liberty, Levin, the #1 show on Sunday nights at 10 here on Fox News. The Great One. All right. The idea that a president can be indicted, I want you to deal with that. I want you to deal with the idea of pardons. I want you to, because this is your wheelhouse, Mark, and the idea that the president's done anything wrong. I see you've got your papers and you are prepared, sir. Go.
All right, number one, this indictment issue. The president can't be indicted according to the United States Department of Justice, the two memos that they put together. This has been the position of the Department of Justice for almost half a century. Mr. Mueller is an inferior employee in terms of the Department of Justice. He works for the Department of Justice, and he must comply with the policies of the Department of Justice. So even putting aside the constitutional issue, he can't defy the Department of Justice and bring an indictment. I believe they already understand that because they watch your show. Constitutionally, we know he can't either because of the arguments laid out by a Republican administration and Democrat administration. In other words, you can't cripple the President of the United States. He's the most powerful man in the federal government, and expect him to have his due process constitutional rights properly defended at the same time. No president's been indicted, and there's a reason for that. No president's ever been brought before a federal grand jury, and there's a reason for that. Perhaps Mr. Mueller is the one who is the tyrant, not the President of the United States. Now, the Appointments Clause of the Constitution. President Trump didn't write that. Last time I checked, the framers wrote it, and it was ratified by all the states. The defect here is not that every special counsel's appointment is unconstitutional. Every special counsel's appointment is not unconstitutional. This special counsel's appointment is unconstitutional because the Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Rosenstein, hasn't educated himself about the Appointments Clause. He does not have the power to substitute his will for the President and the Senate. The President nominates principal officers to the United States Senate, and the Senate must confirm. Assistant Attorneys General, United States Attorneys, Assistant Secretaries, and up. The problem is Mr. Rosenstein conferred so much power onto this special counsel. No specific criminal statutes, no specific individuals, really, and his oversight is so passive and so limited, as he promised he would keep his hands off of Mr. Mueller, that he's created an unconstitutional special counsel. And I believe if the president challenges that one day, he will be successful. Now, the pardon power. You know this memo they keep referring to on Capitol Hill, Mr. Schumer, of all people, it's 2.5 pages long. It's page 1, page 2, page 3. See my X's? Those are the irrelevant parts of the memo that have nothing to do with what's going on today. See the circle? That's it. And there's one sentence in this whole thing. Under the fundamental rule that no one may be a judge in his own case, it would seem that the question should be answered in the negative. That is, whether President can pardon himself. This is not a legal document. This is a joke. Do you see all the footnotes here? There aren't any. You see all the case law here? There isn't any. It's a novel question because no president's ever been indicted. So why are we even discussing this pardon power? Because the New York Times, one of their reporters in one of the highlighted sections of their phony article based on the leaked letter puts in there, is the president saying that he can pardon himself? Of course the president can pardon himself. Here's the language in the Constitution, Article 2, Section 2. The president has the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. Do you hear anything there it says, except in the case of the president? All these protections are built into our Constitution to protect our Constitution, to protect the president from the mob, from the media, from the Democrats that are a mob today. They're here to protect him. It's not the president who's violating the Constitution. It's the media who want the Constitution violated. It's the Democrats who want the Constitution violated. It's Mueller and his merry band of Democrat prosecutors who are tipping around a constitutional confrontation. As I've said here every time I've been on your show, Sean, the Constitution is the president's friend. And I'm speaking rather slowly so even Joe Scarborough can comprehend what I'm saying, or even Chris Cuomo can comprehend what I'm saying.
The president is in this position because of what Mr. Rosenstein did. He created an unconstitutional monster who is threatening to bring the president in front of a federal grand jury, which is unconstitutional and has never been done, with this notion of obstruction of justice when he exercises his prerogatives as president because they want to indict him, which has never been done. The only way to remove a president of the United States is the old-fashioned way, through the Senate, and that's it. And so it's not the president who is the thug, it's Mr. Mueller who's the thug. It's not the president who's the incompetent, it's Mr. Rosenstein who's the incompetent. And they can mock the president and his attorneys all they want. If they show up in the Supreme Court, I'm betting that the president and his attorneys win.
And you are saying the Constitution is on the president's side, and he needs to take it, and his attorneys need to take it all the way. Last point.
I am saying, whether it's the Appointments Clause, or the pardon power, or the issue of indicting a president of the United States, he is right on his tweets, and he's making the people who are criticizing him look like fools. I would say this, and I've said it before. Where the hell is the United States Congress? The Republicans control it. They need to hold hearings. They need to ask Mr. Rosenstein why he didn't recuse himself since he recommended that Comey be fired. They need to ask Mr. Mueller about those memos out of the Justice Department. They need to ask Mr. Mueller what authority he has to drag a president in front of a federal grand jury or subpoena him. What authority does he have to even contemplate indicting a president? And how is it that he hasn't violated the Appointments Clause of the Constitution? Congress has a role, for crying out loud. They're Article 1. They were created first in the Constitution. They don't have to sit back and watch all this. They need to get involved in it.
All right, that's why I call you the great one. Mark, so important we get this right. Our constitutional republic depends on it. You can see him Sunday nights. Don't miss it. Watch Mark's show, Life, Liberty, Levin, every Sunday. #1 show on cable right here on Fox. When we come back, Harris Faulkner and the Hill's Joe Concha on Clinton's unbelievably shocking fall from grace in comments. That on this busy breaking news night. All right, we showed you earlier former President Bill Clinton embarking on a book tour this week, and he's still defending his absolutely disgraceful behavior towards Monica Lewinsky. Saying, I don't owe her an apology or nothing. Here now, the author of, this is an amazing book, right there. You see it? 9 Rules of Engagement, a military brat's guide to life and success. By the way, in bookstores tomorrow, you're going to want to pick this up. One of our favorite anchors, a personal friend of mine, Harris Faulkner's here, and from the Hill, Joe Concha. I love your show. I watch it every day, both of them.
Thank you.
How did you get 2 hours and I only got 1?
Well, I guess it's proof that you can do more with 1 hour than most people can do all day. What do you mean, Sean Hannity?
You know, and only because of my radio show, I've not been on your Outnumbered.
You know,
I'm going to do your show.
we have begged, right?
No,
but tonight in the commercial, you said you might do a little noon Outnumbered. It'll change your life.
In a good way?
It's like a vegetable drink. You know, I mean, it makes you healthy. It gives you something to fight for. It's all good.
The good news is, and I'm so happy for you because the show has been a breakout hit from day one, and it's not easy to do. This is a tough business, and I'm like the grandfather here at this point.
It is.
I'm like the bridge between
we're
two
cousins
boxes.
in that. Come on, let's not talk too much about age.
No.
No, but that time
I was here from day one.
That time of the day, everybody's kind of out doing everything.
Yeah, you're right. And you've done so well, though.
So we've been very blessed. And some of the things that I learned as a military brat, I write about in this book.
Yeah.
You know, devising a strategy. And I know you know about this because you're very picky about who's on your team. You know there's a science to that. We become most like the 5 people we spend most of our time with.
You're right.
So we got to be picky. Our special forces, we have to small S on that. We're not real military. But I learned those gifts from the military about how to build a squad to be successful.
These rules, and I was looking at the book tonight, if we would just follow them, everybody would benefit. You would be, and I've read every self-help book there is, so I need the help.
Oh, no, you
started with the road less traveled. I know, I'm saying. I met Gail King at an event
Nobody's
recently,
on it.
and I said, I learned a lot from Oprah, and she was looking at.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm like, I really did, because she used to have on these self-help authors like Scott Peck and The Road Less Traveled, People Alive.
Exactly, yeah.
But this is a modern-day version, and you learned it all from your family.
I did. I tell a lot of my dad's war pilot stories from Vietnam inside the cockpit, what he was doing to devise his missions. I am somebody who always has a contingency plan. I always have, because things happen, right?
How do I deal with Hannity on his stupid show?
Oh, no! No. That was own your moment. That's another rule, because I'm glad to be here. But thank you so much for your kind words. That's my mom on the back.
Oh, my
And that's
God.
me as a little one on his fighter jet. That's
Look at this.
outside of
Pan in on
Stuttgart,
this
Germany.
if you can. Right there. You got to see this picture. It's so awesome.
Thank you.
I'll pull it in as close as I can.
And look at Mom. She was just cooler
We don't
than
even
the
have
other side
anybody
of
on
the
this
pillow.
camera. It's one of these robo cameras.
Yeah, this
on it.
new
No, there's
studio
a lot of
doesn't
good
have any
that is.
human beings in it.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
great. I love
All right,
it.
let me bring in Joe Concha.
All right, let's
talk. We're going to talk about Bill Clinton.
Hi, Joe.
He lost his mind this weekend. And what bothers me is up until November 8th, 2016, the media protected the Clintons over, let's see, all of his behavior. November 9th, it began to change a little bit.
Well, what you saw today, particularly on the Today Show, Sean, was for the first time in 20 years, Bill Clinton was actually asked a tough question and was actually broached on Monica Lewinsky. And as you said, Bill Clinton, a master politician, excellent communicator, didn't know how to handle it. He ends up making himself the victim by bringing up that he had $16 million in debt, and obviously said he wouldn't apologize to Monica Lewinsky. With the Me Too backdrop, this is not going to go well for him, this book tour at all, because suddenly we're going to start hearing questions about Juanita Broderick or Kathleen Willey, and it's only going to get worse because the Clintons are now expendable, and now interviewers will actually go after him when they've always protected him, as you said, for 20 years.
Expendable. Harris, go ahead.
Yeah, so Washington Post put out a fact checklist of women who could come out and find their voices like Monica Lewinsky. There's 7 other women on it. I mean, he's grappling for relevance right now. And sometimes you have to know when it's not your time. When a woman steps up who you used to have so much power over, and now she's got a powerful voice, it might be time to sit down. Take several seats. We'll see what happens.
It's called 9 Rules of Engagement.
God
Harris
bless
Faulkner,
you.
don't miss her shows. She's 2, I only have
You're
1.
going to come on 1.
Ed Henry, breaking news when we come back.
Thanks, Sean.